If you've got an interest in space and communications, such as technology, policy, business, and operations, and really, who doesn't? Take a look at the Cosmic AES Signals in Space. It's produced in partnership with the CyberWire, and Signals in Space offers a monthly overview of news in that sector. Check it out at cosmicaes.com/tech-news. That's cosmicaes.com/tech-news. The U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence has released an appreciation of the goals of election interference among three principal U.S. adversaries, Russia, China, and Iran. Anomaly offers a look at the ransomware as a service market with its research on smog. The CyberWire's Rick Howard continues his exploration of incident response. Andrea Little-Limbago from Interos on cyber regionalism. And the tangles that need to be untangled in the TikTok affair, with a deadline looming less than a month from now. And now, a word from our sponsor, Observit. With a distributed workforce becoming the new norm, many organizations are forced to learn how to manage mission-critical functions remotely, which brings a unique set of insider threat challenges to the fore. Whether it's careless users, disgruntled employees, or third-party contractors, insiders have access to sensitive data on networks that are likely less secure, introducing new risks to your business. To protect against these new threats, Proofpoint's Observit Insider Threat Management solution empowers security teams to identify user risk, protect from data exfiltration, and accelerate incident response, so you can better protect your organization from insider risk. Get your free trial at observit.com/cyberwire. That's observit.com/cyberwire. And we thank Observit for sponsoring our show. Funding for this CyberWire podcast is made possible in part by LastPass. LastPass is an award-winning security solution that helps millions of individuals in over 70,000 organizations navigate their online lives easily and securely. Businesses can maximize productivity while still maintaining effortless, strong security with LastPass. LastPass can minimize risk and give your IT team a breakthrough integrated single sign-on, password management, and multi-factor authentication solution. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Monday, August 10th, 2020. The U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence on Friday released a statement on election interference. NCSC Director William Evanina says that Russia, China, and Iran are all interested in various forms of interference. Briefly, China dislikes President Trump, whom it regards as unpredictable, and wants him out so that he can't, in Beijing's view, continue to damage Chinese interests. Iran also dislikes the incumbent and sees the prospect of his re-election as likely to mean increased pressure on the Islamic Republic, and pressure that would be designed to bring about regime change in Tehran. Iran also has a more general interest in undermining U.S. institutions, the statement says. Russia has been busy denigrating former Vice President Biden, whom Moscow sees as dangerously connected with Ukraine, and with the Obama administration's disapproval of Russia's armed, slow-motion re-engorgement of that country. He's also seen as part of an anti-Russian establishment. So China and Iran trend blue, Russia red. The returns from Pyongyang aren't in yet. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency Director Christopher Krebs commented on the ODNI statement, praising the intelligence community for its contributions to transparency, declassifying and sharing intelligence in ways CISA thinks likely to contribute to election security. Director Krebs said, quote, "We have long said Russia and other nation-states are targeting our elections. We knew this to be true in 2016, we know it's true today, and we know they will continue to attempt to interfere. While motives may vary, one thing is consistent. They are attempting to interfere in our democratic process." End quote. Security firm Anomaly this morning published its analysis of smog ransomware, recently hawked in criminal-to-criminal markets as a ransomware-as-a-service offering. Simple and lacking some of its competitors' functionality, Smog offers a clean user interface, tech support, and a respectable range of ransomware services from encryption to payment to decryption. Customers are forbidden from infecting targets in the Commonwealth of Independent States, CIS, the former USSR, but that can be accounted for by its hosting on a forum that prohibits operations against the CIS. The exclusion isn't decisive evidence of CIS origin. Wherever smog came from, it probably didn't emerge from the English-speaking world. The threat actor's original posts were in non-native English, legitimately broken English, not the phony, facetious lingo of, for example, shadow broker ease, and the proprietors advertised at the time for an English-speaking developer. The English in the dashboard and the ransom note are much better. So halting English, and so probably not from an Anglophone country, although recent expertise with secondary education in, let's just pick any country at random, the U.S., gives one a little bit of pause. Smog seems to be a market failure. Its proprietors have been led to offer it at a discount during a trial period, and in mid-May, the forum that had hosted the offering froze the threat actor's activities for evidently failing to deposit $8,000 in escrow. The research is interesting for the insight it provides into the workings of the cyber underworld. According to NPR, TikTok is considering litigation against the U.S. government in the hope of overturning last week's executive order that would kick the social platform out of the U.S. entirely. A suit could be filed in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of California as early as tomorrow, and NPR speculates that the grounds of TikTok's challenge would be that the president's findings of fact are thin, that the order violated due process, and that, moreover, he lacks the authority to do what he did. Such a suit seems unlikely to succeed on any of these grounds, and TikTok can't count on much political support. The executive order is directed against TikTok as a threat to users' data and as an actual or potential tool of Chinese intelligence. Bipartisan suspicion of Chinese data collection is now so deep that it will be difficult for TikTok to maintain plausibly that it wouldn't share user data with Beijing's intelligence and security services, especially when Chinese law seems to require that companies based there do so on demand. In any case, the U.S. Senate last Thursday unanimously voted to ban TikTok from all government-issued devices. Microsoft's possible TikTok acquisition would be technically challenging, Reuters reports. TikTok shares a significant amount of code and resources with its ByteDance Corporation sister Douyin, a social platform available only in China. Carving TikTok out from its dependence on such shared resources is likely to be not impossible, but surely difficult. Doing so without damaging what observers think is TikTok's distinctive advantage, its recommendation engine that meretriciously keeps users coming back for more, is part of that challenge, although the engine itself is believed to be unique to TikTok and not shared with other platforms. Another challenge the mooted acquisition faces is that it requires a geographical disentanglement as well. Microsoft is said to be considering acquiring not TikTok as a whole, but only its operations in 4 of the 5 Eyes, the US, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. There apparently are or have been other suitors for TikTok. The Wall Street Journal says that Twitter has been in talks with the ByteDance-owned social platform. The House of Dorsey is viewed as a dark horse competitor. It doesn't have Microsoft's cash, for one thing, and so any acquisition would have to be highly leveraged. On the other hand, of course, Twitter's already in the social business game, so it's got that going for it. CNBC thinks Netflix should look at TikTok because the movie and television service's big competitive threats aren't so much direct competitors like Disney+, but rather what Netflix calls substitution threats. That is, other ways of spending your time receiving amusement, which apparently come down to gaming, watching other people game, and looking at stuff on your phone. So kids, if you're so taken by the Fortnite Charleston, please put the controller down, get up off the couch, and do some dancing on your own. And it is my pleasure to welcome Rick Howard back to the show. Rick Howard is, of course, the CyberWire's chief analyst and also our chief security officer. And he is the host of the CSO Perspectives podcast, which you can find over on CyberWire Pro. And this week, Rick, you are continuing your exploration of incident response. Share with us where you're headed today.
That's right, Dave. And we spent the last 2 episodes talking about that. And, in a nod to the old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Okay, I may be the exception to the rule because I think I may have learned something new this week. Now, okay, it's a shocker. I know. I think I know everything. But so when I invited some of the CyberWire's pool of experts to sit around the hash table with me this week, and we discussed incident response, I expected that we would be talking about some of the technical things that the InfoSec team had to consider during a crisis. But what every hash table expert jumped to immediately was, how do you plan and execute the escalation process? How do you bring everybody into the groove about what's going on? Because Dave, at a certain point, you are no longer investigating a potential breach, but managing a company crisis due to a real honest-to-goodness compromise that may materially impact your organization.
Yeah.
So when that happens, you get all kinds of people coming in to help. And I'm using, air quotes around the help part here, like, the CIO and the IT team and the lawyers and the risk people and the business continuity people and the business unit general managers. And the question is, how do you keep that bag of often differing viewpoints all moving in the same direction in times of high stress and no time to think about it? And, I've worked on this problem for many years, and it turns out, like most things in cybersecurity, there is a framework for this. So have you ever heard of the DAISY model before?
I don't think so.
So it's a decision-making framework. Okay, it was developed by the Intuit company. They improved an earlier version of it called the RACI model. That's RACI with an R. The DAISY acronym spells out what it does. So D, as in the driver, this is the person who organizes the potential decisions. A, that's the approver. This is the one making the decisions. C is the contributors. These are the people doing all the legwork to figure out what we need to do. And I is the informed, the people that will be impacted by whatever decisions we make. And it turns out this is something you can use for all kinds of big projects, but especially incident response. And one of the experts at the hash table this week is Steve Winterfeld. He is an old Army buddy of mine and is currently the advisory CISO for Akamai. But he is a huge advocate of the DAISY-RACI model.
I think one of the best tools out there to map out those roles and responsibility is a RACI. And a RACI, if you haven't seen one, is a spreadsheet that talks about, on the left, who is going to be doing it. On the top, what is going to be done. Reverse those if you want. And then you're going to talk about, is this person for this task responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed? When I build my RACI, only one person can be responsible. Multiple people can be accountable, consulted, or informed. And then, you break that out to different stakeholders for, legal and public relations and, leadership and all of these. And then, deciding if there is a breach and deciding to go public and making the public announcement. So it's just a way to organize everything. So in one graphic, you can tell who's supposed to do what.
All right, so there you have it. I've been trying to manage the escalation process my entire career and didn't know that a framework even existed. So there you go. Even an old dog can learn new things.
Well, congratulations. I'll give you a nice little scratch behind the ears there for you, Rick. But how does a framework like this also help keeping people in their lanes? Because I can imagine in an emotional situation like this, like you said, you put air quotes around help. And I think part of this has to be the discipline for people to contribute in the ways that they're trained in their areas of expertise, despite having the impulse to want to help out with everything.
Yeah, it does, right? And it helps out in a number of different ways. During the crisis, you don't have to be remembering, what you said you were going to do 2 years ago or the last time you thought about it. It's a simple spreadsheet, so you can just see who's responsible for everything. It's also really good for exercises, right? When you practice this, I guarantee you that what you thought was going to happen is not going to happen during the exercise. So you bring that in, the DAISY chart in, and say, we thought it was going to be this, now it's going to be this other thing. So it's a way to keep it fresh and on everybody's mind. So, yeah, I wish I would have had it like 10 years ago. My life would have been easier.
Right, fair enough. Well, it's CSO Perspectives. It's part of CyberWire Pro. You can check it out on our website, thecyberwire.com. Rick Howard, always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
And now, a word from our sponsor, Threat Connect. Designed by analysts but built for the entire team, Threat Connect's intelligence-driven security operations platform is the only solution available today with intelligence, automation, analytics, and workflows in a single platform. Every day, organizations worldwide use Threat Connect as the center of their security operations to detect, respond, remediate, and automate. With all of your knowledge in one place, enhanced by intelligence, enriched with analytics, driven by workflows, you'll dramatically improve the effectiveness of every member of the team. Want to learn more? Check out their newest ebook, SOAR Platforms. Everything you need to know about security, orchestration, automation, and response. The book talks about intelligence-driven orchestration, decreasing time to response and remediation with SOAR, and ends with a checklist for a complete SOAR solution. Download it at threatconnect.com/cyberwire. That's threatconnect.com/cyberwire. And we thank Threat Connect for sponsoring our show. And joining me once again is Andrea Little-Limbago. She is the Vice President of Research and Analysis at Interos. Andrea, it's always great to have you back. I wanted to touch today on this pattern we're seeing when it comes to regionalism and sort of contrast that against you and I have talked about this notion of the splinter net of nations kind of breaking away from the global internet and putting a virtual wall around themselves. Where are we finding ourselves these days when it comes to those two elements?
Yeah, and thanks for having me. It's always fun to chat with you. So we're seeing the divisions continue to grow, would be the simplest way to put it. And it really is, the splinter net for a while was something that, it was almost one of those things we thought about was something, a future component, but what really is going on? I mean, it's really already here. And whether you think about, how certain websites look or what you have access to, depending on where you sit, is only, one component of it. It's really where we're seeing it going is even more so into well beyond what data you have access to and what you can explore into, what the tech stacks are going to be built on. And that's where I think sort of the bigger changes we're starting to see is that you're seeing both on the fracturing of the internet, but also fracturing of the software stacks and the hardware that will be driving these technologies from different countries. And so it's even, from a splinter net, I feel like it's evolving into more of two different technospheres that kind of encapsulates the broader divisions that are going on the technology front, but also encapsulating the internet divisions. And so it really is very much so along geopolitical lines. And this is something we've talked about in the past, with the rise of digital authoritarianism. And so the use of by the various authoritarian leaders to leverage the internet for internet control and leveraging the technology for that, albeit from a surveillance state to disinformation to perhaps enabling some sorts of backdoors through various kinds of technologies. There's really a broad range of tools that the digital authoritarians are using. And so that continues, and that's largely driven by the Chinese model, the Russian model, and that's permeating through to different countries across each of the regions across the globe. And for a while, there wasn't much of a democratic model, I would argue, until lately. On the one hand, as far as where privacy is concerned, Europe's GDPR is basically the main global counterweight as far as how to protect data. But that's starting to emerge, and so the example that I'm keeping an eye on and want to that I think might be indicative of emerging democratic collaboration would be the pact that the UK pushed forward about a month ago, I think, on creating a 5G pact to help strengthen the trust within supply chains, the technology supply chains, or the digital supply chains, if you will, and ensuring that the technologies building into the digital supply chains are from trusted countries. And so, the focus for that is to reach out to, coordinate with 10 democratic countries and release reliance on various Chinese technologies that may be untrusted, but then also to build up their own domestic capabilities as well. And on days that I'm hopeful in this area, a lot of it focuses on that kind of collaboration that we're starting to see across democracies and trying to create more of a trusted environment to at least head towards some of those aspirations of what the internet was supposed to be as far as free flowing of information, but still having maintaining some security within it. And so we'll see what happens with that. But I think it's also a nice counterweight to the rising economic nationalism that we see, and concerns about every country going off on their own, which is not the best way to to handle all the global challenges that we have right now. So I think we will hopefully continue to see some more collaboration in that area, and I think that will be an interesting trend to keep an eye on, and could have a very large impact to counter some of the more negative trends that we're seeing going on in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I mean, is it fair to describe it almost as like a recoil, a reaction of I feel like in some ways things were rolling along, and in a way the democracies sort of took their eye off the ball for a little while as so many of the benefits, things we got used to with the connectivity of the internet and global commerce and all those sorts of things and the exchange of information. And then it's sort of been like I say, a recoil is the image I have in my mind. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's also that, whether it's a recoil or whether, I like the analogy of taking the eye off the ball. I mean, really, for quite some time, it was just assumed that the internet would provide, only had, good ends and means going along with it. And if you think about, because especially if you think about the Arab Spring now, and, that, almost a decade ago, or in some cases, people looked at the Arab Spring and saw, look at what social media can do. It can give voice to people who didn't have a voice before. And there certainly was an element of that, and that's those are the aspirations on which the internet was built. But it ignored the fact that these tools are also available to those who don't have good intentions, and can also be used for suppression and through disinformation, and actually to crush those same voices. And so that dual use nature of the internet, I think, was just ignored. And so, in some regards, you can say maybe the 2016 U.S. election was some level of a wake up call for democracies, but even then, Russia and other countries had been interfering in elections for years before that, and continue to do so. So democracies, I think, really are just starting to see how much their dependence on both technologies from other countries, but also on some of that fact that they hadn't built in some of these guardrails. That's where the norms and the policies come to place. That they kind of just forgot about building some of those. And at the time, for a while, especially if you think about norms and cyber norms and the proper rules of the road for behavior in that, there were plenty of efforts that went through the UN over the last decade, and they basically fell apart due to these divisions that I was talking about, as far as Russia and China and say Cuba on one hand, and then democracies on the other. And I think that was looking at those norms discussions are almost a precursor to where we see things going now. And the difference is it's not just a discussion at the UN. It's actually we're seeing it play out through the technologies that we have and through the data that we have access to, and just how governments are handling themselves.
Yeah, it really is fascinating to watch. It's interesting times for sure. Andrea Little-Imbago, thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you.
If you will forgive me a bit of bragging on behalf of our CyberWire team, I am pleased to share that over the weekend we passed 30 million total downloads for our main CyberWire podcast feed. You all have been downloading episodes at a rate of over 1 million per month for the past 9 months, and all of us here are honored that so many of you all over the world find our work valuable and choose to join us every day. So, a heartfelt thanks. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. And for professionals and cybersecurity leaders who want to stay abreast of this rapidly evolving field, sign up for CyberWire Pro. It'll save you time and keep you informed. Listen for us on your Alexa smart speaker, too. Thanks to all of our sponsors for making the CyberWire possible, especially our supporting sponsor, Proofpoint's Observit, the leading people-centric insider threat management solution. Learn more at observit.com. The CyberWire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our amazing CyberWire team is Elliot Peltzman, Puru Prakash, Stefan Vaziri, Kelsey Bond, Tim Nodar, Joe Kerrigan, Harold Terrio, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Iben, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.